Shannon Kelly. In terms of my journey, I grew up in the Pilbara region up north in Karratha, and I completed my primary school studies, but I always had, this want to be able to support others and help others and understand behaviour. So I actually moved to Perth and completed my high school studies and really got drawn to psychology. So this ended up leading me to, pursue the double degree in psychology at UWA. And I think this confirmed, where I wanted to be in terms of actually the career. And I really enjoyed, the research that was offered. So I participated in a research unit and thought that research was quite a good space for me to be in. The fact that you could, add to a body of knowledge that was quite novel. So I completed my honours studies, and then after that decided that I wanted to be a registered psychologist. So I completed the Masters in Industrial and Organisational Psychology course, the degree, and I did that in 2020. So I started that 2020 and completed that at the end of last year. So it's been a bit of a journey, but now I'm a registered psychologist, and I support employees to, improve their well-being. So I always found psychology to be quite an interesting space. I always was really interested in why humans do some of the things that they do. And as I grew up, I wanted to, be in a position where I was able to support employees in more practical sense by providing more of those strategies to support their well-being. So I've always kind of had this interest in this area, and throughout, my undergrad and completing that, where I've been able to develop really great relationships with some researchers and psychologists, I've been able to really delve into that area. And I've found this place now where I am quite satisfied and find that essentially my calling has been, recognised, and now I'm kind of at this point where I'm a registered psychologist and being able to assist others to support their well-being. Yes, I really loved the honours program. It provided enough autonomy, but also that guidance from my supervisor. So I had a really great experience completing that. And that transition in terms of that master's program, because of, a lot of those skills that I got from that honours program, I was then able to, apply them, but expand on them a lot more in that master's program. So for me, it was the avenue to become a registered psychologist, but it also, provided a lot more of that theory and that ability to become quite a specialist in a niche area. And I think, that in combination with a lot of the social supports that I had obtained throughout the honours to be able to get to that point were really, a combination of factors that came into play to leading me to pursue that master's program. Yeah, so as part of the master's program, we actually had the coursework element. So typically you do the coursework element at the start. And what I found was that I was particularly drawn to, the research area that my supervisor was currently studying, and the topic that she was looking at. So I had, developed quite a good relationship with that supervisor, where we were able to explore potential avenues for future projects, and we were able to, come up with one collectively where it was quite a novel piece of work, but also one that she was able to supervise in that process. So it was really a collaborative piece, and she was quite flexible in terms of, allowing me to have a bit more of that autonomy around how that project looked. So it was collaboration essentially. With the Masters, I think that one of the biggest challenges that I faced was that I completed my research during the COVID pandemic. And given the fact that my research was face-to-face, a face-to-face experiment that required students to come in, there were often periods where we were, I guess, in that lockdown phase that impacted, I guess, the recruitment of participants. So for myself, it was managing some of those stresses. But I think with the support of my supervisors and the university, we were able to, I guess, manage that quite effectively. And we had, I guess, a backup plan as well. So there was a lot of things that were done to, I guess, manage that stress. But I think for myself, given the period of time that I went through my studies and did the master's program, it was around some of the impacts that the COVID pandemic had on face-to-face research data collection. So I think for the master's program, there was a few key things that I learned for myself. One of them was actually not to compare ourselves with others. I think that that's often something that we typically fall into the habit of doing at times, but it's important to recognise that we're kind of all on this journey at a different pace, and it's going to look completely different for each of us. So that was the first thing that I learnt quite early on, is that there's going to be a lot of people around you to support you. And then the second part was about really asking for help if you do find that, you know, it's getting a little bit tough. There are a lot of supervisors and there's a lot of really great people within the university that are really there to help. And simply it's just about asking for some of that help at times when you might need it. So I think those two were, I guess, two really key learnings for myself during that program. Upon reflection, I think that I would be a little bit more in the present moment with some of the project side of things. It's often quite easy for us to, I guess, think ahead and be quite future oriented. So if I was to do things again, I would try and remain in the present moment, because upon, you know, getting out of that university environment, I reflect that it was such a great place to be in, a great time, and I was often focused on the future, essentially a little bit too much, so that would be the slight adjustment. But other than that, I think, I can't fault, I guess, the experience that I had. Yeah, so I did a few things. I think at that individual level, it was maintaining some of that self-care, so just making sure that, you know, you're doing the things and not, I guess, neglecting, you know, that exercise and making time for friends and family. So that self-care part was something that I really focused on. But also the second part was looking at reaching out to supervisors as well, and reaching out to your peers as well, because you're often going through a similar experience. And for myself, that was quite beneficial to just recognise that, you know, those people are there to be able to provide a bit more of that assistance and that sounding board when you might need it during that degree. So the submission process is quite nerve-wracking. You'll often have a lot of competing demands that I guess you're trying to manage. So personally, I felt quite nervous and a little bit stressed, but I found that my supervisor was quite good in terms of managing some of that stress and being that sounding board and that support system as well in that process. In terms of celebrations, so we went out as a peer group and just had, I guess, that celebration piece, but also with friends and family. So it was really nice that it was kind of that final process on this long journey that we've all been through together. So that's how we kind of celebrated. if I was to give advice to a future student, it would be about, just giving everything a go. I think you might feel that you might feel like an imposter. I think that is a common experience that, a lot of my cohort felt, a lot of my students that I tutored had felt. And it might be an uncomfortable feeling at the start, but I think you're probably not going to regret that experience because it's going to teach you something about yourself no matter what. So I would just be really encouraging about taking a lot of those opportunities that might come up, because I think that they will teach you something regardless of, the outcomes that it might lead to. 1,000% I would do it again. I see through, in my current role, a lot of the benefits and the skills that I've developed throughout my degree that have been foundational in terms of being able to be that registered psychologist. So I would definitely do it all again. I think that it provided a lot of, it just provided a lot of the skills and a lot of the experiences that I think would just not make me had I not gone through that. So I definitely would. Yeah, so for myself, I want to be working towards the endorsement process, so looking at becoming an organisational psychologist. But also at that point want to be working quite strongly aligned with organisations to be managing psychosocial risk factors. So essentially creating, work environments that are going to be able to essentially allow employees to thrive. So that's ultimately the goal for myself, and where I want to be in those 5 years' time.